Today, we will delve into the chilling stories of two black serial killers who joined forces to take the lives of 15 innocent individuals. Born in Columbia, South Carolina, on November 7, 1979, Quincy Jovan Allen endured a difficult childhood. Reports suggest that his mother was neglectful and abusive, showing little regard for him or his siblings, and even attempted to relinquish custody of him. Allen redirected the violence he experienced onto others, bringing a bottle to school to confront a bully. He spent time in mental health facilities during his teens. By 20, he was imprisoned for vehicle theft, where he met a man who spun tales of Mafia Grandeur, enticing Allen with promises of power. Allen was offered a job as a hitman, with the inmate suggesting he only needed to prove he could pull the trigger. Driven by these enticing promises, whether real or imagined, Allen re-entered the world on a mission, armed with a shotgun. He embarked on a terrifying spree that felt more like a chilling audition than random violence. July 7, 2002, marked the start of his campaign of terror. Under the sweltering Columbia sun, a homeless man named James White rested on a park bench in Finley Park, oblivious to the fact that his life was about to change forever. At the age of 22, Allen approached with a chilling calmness and discharged 2 shots. Against all odds, White managed to survive 3 days later. On July 10, 2002, Allen met 45-year-old Devon Hall at an isolated highway rest area. This time, Allen left nothing to fate. He fired several shots at Hall, but even that wasn't enough. After fueling up, Allen returned to the location, determined to draw attention to his deeds by setting Hall's remains ablaze. As time passed, his thirst for brutality escalated. On August 8, while working at a Texas roadhouse, he found himself in heated arguments with patrons. That confrontation spilled out into the parking lot and resulted in the death of 22-year-old Jedediah "Jed" Hare. The young man was merely an innocent bystander but fell victim to Allen's gunfire as he targeted someone else. Unwilling to cease his actions, Allen continued. Allen followed one of the other customers he argued with to their home and torched his porch. His rampage escalated the next day when he targeted a Texas roadhouse co-worker, burning their car, and then, for good measure, setting fire to a random vehicle. Killing on August 12 at a Citgo gas station in Dobson, North Carolina, he shot 2 men, Richard Calvin Hawks and Robert Shane Rouse. In cold blood during a robbery, his spree came to an end. 2 days later in Mitchell County, Texas, where police found him asleep in an abandoned car in the courtroom, Allen's actions came under the harsh glare of justice on February 20, 2004. By this point, Allen's trail of terror had attracted the notice of law enforcement, but he had already escaped the state and had no intention of stopping. They launched a vicious assault on a correctional officer, repeatedly stabbing him with improvised weapons. Although the officer survived, he was left with lasting scars, both physical and emotional. Allen's defense team battled fiercely, contending that his mental health struggles had not been adequately taken into account. These appeals ultimately led to a significant ruling in July 2022. In July 2024, a federal court annulled his death sentence, prompting Allen to accept a plea agreement that transformed his death penalty into a life sentence without the chance of parole. Now 45 years old, Allen remains behind bars, his aspirations of Mafia Grandeur diminished to the dull routine of prison life. Benjamin Atkins, on the other hand, entered the world on August 26, 1968, destined for a life marked by suffering. In the core of Detroit, Benjamin was thrust into a life that was already set against him. His mother allegedly left him at an orphanage when he was just 2 years old. As he grew up, he faced abuse from other children, and at the age of 10, He was assaulted by a staff member at the orphanage. Eventually, he reconnected with his mother, who was working as a sex worker, leaving him repulsed by her way of life. He found himself living on the streets, uneducated, battling drug addiction, and taking on low-paying jobs just to get by. As the years went on, his animosity toward women intensified, ultimately leading him to commit acts of violence against them. December 1991 marked the beginning of a horrific nightmare, as 23-year-old Atkins embarked on a killing spree that would last less than a year but exact an unimaginable toll. 11 women, primarily sex workers and drug addicts, became victims of his calculated brutality. He was methodical in his approach, luring his targets with offers of drugs, alcohol, or money for sex, revealing his true nature in the process. After isolating his victims in the desolate ruins of abandoned buildings in Detroit, Benjamin Atkins subjected them to horrific acts of violation, torture, and strangulation, extinguishing their lives in the shadows. As the city's streets fell eerily silent, the community collectively braced itself for the next tragedy. The terror he unleashed came to a halt on August 21, 1992, not through a dramatic rescue or complex sting operation, but due to the courage of one woman, Doreen Saunders. Having survived his assault back in October 1991, she never forgot his face. One pivotal day, she recognized him on the streets of Detroit and acted decisively, notifying the authorities, which ultimately led to his capture. Atkins initially attempted to evade accountability by denying all allegations and claiming he was gay to divert suspicion. Nevertheless, the mounting evidence against him was undeniable, and detectives were not misled by his claims. After 12 intensive hours of questioning, Atkins finally broke down, providing a confession that was both disturbing and comprehensive. He detailed his victims, their clothing, and even disclosed the locations of 2 women who had yet to be connected to the murders. He confessed that his first murder occurred in the winter of 1991, earlier than anyone had assumed. His admission revealed a man engulfed by hatred, where his victims were not random targets but rather symbols of his suffering, a twisted reaction to his painful past. For Atkins, the murders were deeply personal. The courtroom was filled to capacity when Benjamin Atkins faced trial in January 1994. The chilling narratives of his crimes, presented by 150 witnesses, illustrated a scene of utter horror. While Atkins confessed openly, he claimed insanity, displaying little emotion throughout the trial. His defense attorney argued that his traumatic upbringing and drug dependency had rendered him mentally unstable, but the jury was not swayed. Following 4 months of intense testimony and 3 days of deliberation, the verdict was delivered. Guilty on 11 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of first-degree criminal sexual conduct, resulting in 11 life sentences without the possibility of parole. The families of his victims finally saw a degree of justice, though no punishment could truly alleviate the suffering he caused. However, prison did not offer Atkins any relief. His health rapidly deteriorated due to complications from AIDS, which he had contracted prior to his arrest. Transferred to Duane Waters Hospital, Atkins passed away on September 17, 1997, at the young age of 29. The individual responsible for so much anguish was gone, yet the impact of his actions would forever be etched in memory.